Welcome to CoB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharvan Raghavan.
So, Sharan,
Hmm.
I know that you consult a lot of upcoming businesses, a lot of traditional businesses on how to create a brand, how to turn their possibly commodities into a brand, and how to succeed, take their business to the next level.
Right.
Now, given how much they pay you, they will be left with very little budget.
True.
I'm sure then you also teach them how to do marketing within whatever else is left after they've paid you.
Okay. Before you disparage my reputation a little too badly on the episode, let me clarify. The whole point is I tell my clients that brand building is not just about the deep pockets that you have.
Okay.
And there's so much you can do without spending too much money.
I know.
And I,
I know you have to tell them that they aren't left with too much money. But jokes aside, why this came to my head was because I saw the topic that you had put up for today's
hmm,
podcast, which is shoestring marketing. Despite our assurance around marketing or brand building being something which is very fundamental
hmm,
and not really requiring significant amount of money, we've spoken about research in the past where DIY
right.
research was what we picked up. In this one, are you going to tell people how to do marketing without spending too much money?
Yeah. So I had a client interaction where this client asked me, as a part of my pitch, I keep telling people, right? So you can do marketing without spending too much money. It's not about the money you spend. So this client very patiently heard me out. Then she said, okay, I get it that you can build a brand without spending too much money. Now tell me what exactly I can do.
Hmm.
So I've never been asked that question before. So I
Hmm.
said, fine, it's a fair enough question. And I sat down and we worked out what she could do with very, very limited budgets. And I said, if this is what they're looking for, then it's pretty logical that we make an episode out of this conversation because this is I was put on the spot by a prospective client, and I think it made for good conversation for both of us.
Excellent. Excellent. So let's do this. If there are
Hmm.
lots of listeners out there who want to create a brand, don't want to spend significant amount of money, they will be looking at this kind of an advice. If you have some pieces of advice or some kind of a playbook, please share it away.
Cool. So let's look at this from the basic stuff, right? A lot of the entrepreneurs I meet, especially in the early stages, do not have their unit P&Ls worked out. So let's this is the basic of how financial constraints are handled in the startup world. Yes, it is stressful. Yes, you're fighting for survival. But in your fight for survival, you need to understand what your numbers are. And if your unit economics don't make sense, your business will never make money. And if you sell more, it only means you're spending more.
Hmm.
And I have seen people, especially when I work with FMCG and other consumer businesses, they apply the tech business logic to the product business, saying it will eventually make money if I sell more.
Hmm.
But if your unit economics have not been worked out, you will not sell more and you will not make any money, even if you sell more. The whole point is, I'm not saying you should make profit from the go. You should at least know what critical mass you should hit for your unit P&L to start making a profit.
Okay.
Because profit will come at a certain scale,
Hmm.
and that should be a first milestone in business. And whether you hit that milestone immediately or a year from now, it is important to know that bridge. What, how much does it cost you to make the product? How much money are you making for every sale? How much discount are you allowed to give? What is the margin you're making? What is the margin you're paying out? Does your cost of goods come down when you hit a certain scale? You need to have this mapped out. Without this, there's no point doing any marketing at all. That's the first part of being frugal.
Fair. So, from a scale point of view, what comes to my head is scale tends to rationalize your fixed costs. So, therefore, whatever overheads, the fixed overheads that you have, those
Exactly.
are all which will get rationalized over a larger scale. What I also heard you say is about the marketing side of it, which features into the unit economics,
Right.
and hence you need to hit some kind of a flywheel,
Right.
uh, that your marketing spend does not grow proportionate to sale,
Hmm.
right? So therefore, understanding of what your fixed costs are, how will they rationalize over a period of time when scale kicks in, and number two, how to get that flywheel in whatever channel you are working with, so that you invest ahead, do something which makes sure that people keep coming back without necessarily spending that much amount of money.
Absolutely. Let's say you're selling peanuts. Just random example.
Huh.
100 grams of peanuts, the cost for you is, let's say, 20 rupees, and your actual MRP is 200 rupees,
Hmm.
and you got other margins built in. At when you procure it for 20 rupees, your gross margin of that would somewhere be around 30-40%,
Mm-hmm.
and you would have your marketing expenses. Now when you're starting out, what should be 20 rupees for a 200 rupee MRP might actually cost you 400 rupees.
Hmm.
This can get rationalized over time, so your 400 rupees can 40 rupees can come down to 20 rupees over time. But if the spend you're doing in your GM, which is your promotions, your marketing spend, does not change or does not reduce in your PNL as you grow, that's when you get hit.
The nature of spend that you're making within that marketing spend will determine whether it gets rationalized over a period of time or not.
Yeah, in local parlance, I'd say, is it sustainable for you or not?
Hmm.
That's pretty much the question.
Okay.
And as an extension of this, how much money are you allocating for marketing, for your salaries, for your rent, for all your expenses? Now, usually what gets cut is marketing spend, and what gets amplified is a sales promotion, because when you comes down to a crunch. But if you have this budget calendarized, it makes better sense. That's when you will stay within the limits you allocated. Now, the other thing entrepreneurs say is that we never have so much money to map out the full calendar. No, you must operate on at least a 6 month runway. Anything shorter than that, you're doing injustice to yourself, for your team, and for the brand you're building. So, without a 6 month runway, you cannot do it. Now, some people will say, at the scale I'm operating, my budget will only last for 4 months. Well, the answer there is very clear that you should reduce the scale you're operating at and make sure you at least last for 6 months. That's the only way you start this off. That takes me to the next point. Says in scaling down, it also talks about the kind of target audience you're going after. And this is one aspect we've addressed multiple times, and I think it's worth repeating that every entrepreneur who starts says, I have no competition. They do have competition. They always have competition. I know the confidence stems usually from the quality of product that they're bringing into the market, but that doesn't really translate to the customer side of story until they made the trial purchase. So you have competition, and you need to know who you're going to target, because when you say you have no competition, you're going after everybody. And like we've said multiple times on the show, when you want to be something to everybody, you end up being nobody to anybody, and that's exactly the problem. And when you're focusing your marketing efforts to a niche is when you can actually cut costs. You can be so focused on the niche, you can communicate with them directly, understand them better, and therefore be very prudent in how you spend your marketing monies.
Hmm. When you talk to a niche, you would possibly spend your money behind one or two key messages, should possibly be able to increase your frequency amongst that niche with the same amount of money, and
Right.
therefore should be able to hit a critical mass, should be able to, possibly create that flywheel, rather than talking to a very large audience and then, struggling amongst small sections among within those.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a lot of the founders also quote Byron Sharp, saying
Hmm.
mass marketing is everything.
Hmm.
So that becomes a bit of a circular conversation to say, see, mass marketing is great. but you need a certain mass, a certain scale of operation to do that. And this is what, so this is a recommendation I'd make to all entrepreneurs. If you're reading marketing books, start with Seth Godin and then go on to Byron Sharp. Don't start with Byron Sharp because it's expensive. Seth Godin talks about niche marketing. He talks about how startups can be built, how small businesses can be built. So start with that if those are the books you're
Mm.
trying to read. The main objection people raise when I say narrow down your target audience is that I'm losing business. I'm not focusing on people who could actually buy my product. It doesn't matter if so many people were waiting in line. You wouldn't have to focus your niche.
Mm.
Think of it as a fountain. You start at one point, and then you flower out as you grow into other parts of the market. So start niche, focus on the niche, and therefore cut down on your marketing spends very, very judiciously.
Okay, understood. One of the examples that comes to my head is when I was listening to one of these podcasts where Arindam Paul talks about getting success in an industrial belt in Gujarat, where they found that ceramic industry uses a lot of fans to dry the ceramic that they were making. Because they had fans running 24 cross 7, energy efficiency mattered to them a lot,
Exactly.
and hence the Atomberg team completely focused on that particular segment and made sure they reached to a certain amount of sale volume value before they started talking to other segments. That was a good
Perfect.
example, possibly, of doubling down on a niche that you discover and making sure
Right.
that you juice it out so that it creates some amount of base volume to build upon.
Absolutely. And it's so clear, right? Who wants to save power? Everybody does. And Atomberg is built fans for homes primarily.
Hmm.
And they could have said, why am I alienating the domestic consumer and by going industrial? But they went after the point that who feels the pain the most of power
Hmm.
saving.
Hmm.
And it's obviously felt in the industrial space, like you mentioned, where they're using 20 fans 24/7 and they have the power, the, the spend on power issue. And therefore, they were addressing that inside the strongest and focused on that niche to begin with. And today, I honestly believe people who buy Atomberg fans first buy it for the design and then they justify it with the power saving after that.
Yeah, possibly yes.
So
Possibly yes.
that's a wonderful story. So same thing happened to Canva, right? So Canva, the design software, they didn't start out with going after all designers and all agencies or freelancers to start with. So they've initially started doing yearbooks. I think the business was called Fusion Books is what they started. So they focused on one aspect. They actually printed these annual books for schools.
Hmm.
So putting in the pictures of the students and all that, and they called it the Fusion Book brand. And from there, they started selling the software that they were using to do that, and which became Canva eventually. So starting niche is never a hindrance; it's only a plus at any given point, and therefore you can cut down on the costs you're spending
Hmm.
on marketing.
Hmm. Okay. Fair. Fair. I think understood. So, first one is about getting your economics understanding right. The second is about focusing on a niche and
Right
juicing it out. Okay. Fair. What else?
now comes the actual marketing strategies.
Hmm.
So these are the most commonsensical stuff for most people who've grown up in the tech age and the used to social media and the content writing, content creation that happens. It's just that when it comes to business, everything escapes their mind. So when as an outsider, it's easy for us to tell people what they should be doing for free.
Hmm. Hmm.
And there is also this cost factor of marketing is driven by the entrepreneur or the leader's mentality that until you're spending money, you're not doing good marketing.
Hmm.
A lot of people believe I'm investing so much in marketing is a claim to the investors they want to make. They want to claim to everybody else outside for how much they're investing in marketing. So that cannot be the way you're building your brand
Hmm.
or your
Hmm.
marketing performance. So focus on the basic stuff. Create content. Now that you've identified a niche, you know which platforms your target audience are present in. So focus on those platforms. Put out content for them. Because when you've identified a niche, what happens is you get their core insight. Once you have their insight, you have to create content to them almost as if you are reading their mind. and that is what hooks them in. And that's what most of us who follow any content creators online get hooked in, because what they say resonates with our life and what our life truth is. So create content that is relevant to your audience.
One is organic reach, because you're creating
Right.
content you want people to discover, and then have stickiness in the content so that they remain stuck to it. But the fact is that this will take a little bit of time. If you want to build a quick reach, suppose if that's one of your objectives, identify which one spend can help you do that to the maximum possible level. Avoid all distractions, then only spend behind that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you have one particular influencer who has significant reach in that particular TG, get hold of that, try to negotiate and get to the best possible deal, and also find out a way in which this influencer's reach can then be monetized on a sustained basis.
Absolutely. In fact, what you spoke on just reminded me of another conversation with a client.
Hmm.
Was that they were making perfumes.
Okay.
And I said, so what have you done so far? And they had this influencer who they'd worked with. And the influencer had returned like almost 90x of the investment they put on the influencer. And they never repeated that. I said, why didn't you repeat it? No, a contract was for 3 months. Like, so for the
Hmm.
3 months, it actually justified so much of the business you got. So why don't you repeat it? So, like you said, when something is working, focus on it. So we put our own constraints there. So when something is working, just stay the course until it stops working, at least. The next other cost effective or low cost marketing strategy is social media. I'm not talking about performance marketing yet. I'm talking about proper social media community building.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's this algorithm changes that happens, the reach is unreliable. But when there are specific communities formed, people gravitate towards those content pieces. This is again a space why the niche matters. When you're talking to a closed group, for example, I motorcycle a lot. I love going on motorcycle rides. So there's one guy who put up this picture about motorcycling boots. We don't have access to too much motorcycle accessories in India, and he put up this motorcycling boots that he bought. And he says, I'm going to get a few more. If any of you want, let me know. And we just started talking about what it is, what size it is, how heavy it is to carry. Does it work in snow? Does it work in water? So just the conversation of it builds a community. That I think that Facebook group, which started like 4 years ago, has got some 800 members today.
Oh, nice.
And anybody who's selling motorcycle riding accessories could just leverage that group. So creating, and he wasn't actually selling a business at that time. He started selling a business afterwards. He made it into an accessory business, but he just started this conversation and people started contributing there. So that way building a community is great. However, I have a caveat to this, that these algorithms can always mess you up. Because I remember when I was on Oreo, in the first 3 years of Oreo, we'd spent so much money on building the number of fans for the Oreo page. Then there was this meeting Facebook had called for, had all, as it was more dressed up like how you can leverage the Facebook algorithm better. And that's when they dropped the bombshell that we're not going to have any more organic reach. This was, I think, 2014, 15. That's when they announced this. So you are on somebody else's platform at the end of the day,
Hmm.
and you cannot let that dictate how your business or your brand is performing. Once you have
Okay.
traction in the community, once you
Yeah,
have
yeah,
traction
yeah.
on a specific platform, take them off the platform, or at least you have them another avenue of communicating with you outside of the platform. You could write blogs, email newsletters, get them on WhatsApp groups, or Telegram. So get them off one platform to another so that there are always multiple ways to engage with the same community you're building.
Okay. Fair. Yeah. Yeah.
And the other one is about being having a personality. Don't be the tone of conversation is that don't be too serious. Don't take yourself too seriously. Take your business seriously, but not yourself. So be sure of the tone of conversation you want to have, and that is what gets your content to go viral. And the first thing that comes to mind is the Dollar Shave Club. The way that, I'm not sure if you remember this. This is when Dollar Shave Club launched. They had this video in their warehouse where the founder was talking about why he's launching Dollar Shave Club, and it was a very quirky, very funny ad, still
Yeah.
delivering the message of the mission behind the business.
Yeah.
And that actually took off. And maybe it was easier to go viral then, but having a personality gives you a better chance to go viral, is all I'm saying. So these are primarily your low cost marketing strategies, the way you can reach out to.
It's a platform called Zerodha.
Oh yeah.
Now, significantly popular, unlike some of its other brethren, you've never seen it advertising
Yeah, I don't think they ever advertise.
at all, right?
Yeah.
There have been many others who have tried to, uh, advertise small case,
Hmm.
grow.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have never advertised.
Right. And I also am a fan of the content they're creating now. I
Hmm.
think the table, almost a round table structure of conversations that they're doing in their podcast is
Hmm.
lovely.
Hmm.
And that is and that's again talking to the same community that they built. They're leveraging the community across multiple platforms. It's a brilliant
Hmm.
example.
Hmm.
Thank you for listening to CoB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharvana Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobcast.net. That's CoBBCAST.net.
The next part is about doing a lot of the work yourself.
Hmm.
I see a lot of founders, the moment they decide to start a business and they've registered a name, the first thing they do is to hire an agency to create their brand identity. I understand where the drive comes from, because having an identity that you're proud of is the beginning of your business ego. Your self esteem in the business starts from that point. Now, for this, hiring an agency at an early stage of a business, I think is a bit of an overkill. And designers come at a cost, and the designers not necessarily are contributing too much beyond just the design to the business at that stage. And if you need a professional to make your design, your brand identity, hire freelancers. You got so many platforms. You got Fiverr, Upwork. Get these freelancers, and you'll get freelancers from across the world to work on your brand. If that's any motivation, use
Hmm.
that, and you'll probably do it at one fifth the cost. And I've used them previously, and I've say 4 out of 5 have been really good. You do find a few frogs, but you will find more princes than frogs when you go the freelancer way. So use that. It's very, very cheap. It's very practical. And that's one way of reducing a lot of your marketing expense, or the expense you incur on your brand. The other is people buying a lot of software and not using it. So this research I got talking to a SaaS entrepreneur from Chennai. He said the new age businesses that are 5 years and lesser, they buy at least 6 or 7 SaaS products that they pay for on the annual plan.
Hmm.
They don't use more than two, and they continue to buy more software subscriptions every year, while they continue to use only two.
Hmm.
Like,
Okay.
I'm sure you buy more books than you can read. I do the
Hmm.
same. We sign up for more courses than we can take. So this is common in our personal lives. Bringing it to work is a problem. You have to be very prudent about the kind of softwares and systems you're using, so that you don't incur it almost becomes a fixed expense annually. So once, what happens to these subscriptions is that once you've made the decision, very rarely do you go back to unsubscribing for those payments, because it's usually on the annual plan. And this keeps going on and on and on. And unless you are in a crunch, you do not choose to unsubscribe. By the time, it's usually too late. And these things add up one by one by one. And there is so much information available for free. So there are so many free plans. So before, even if you must have a software, take the absolute basic plan, stick to the monthly subscription to start with, unless you're using it regularly, and then move on to the rest. And most of these platforms always have a free option to start. Start with the free option and use the cheaper options. So there's Canva for design. Use it. There is Google Analytics, which gives you all your website insights. That's Hootsuite, your Amazon Pi data. So this is something I noticed, right? A lot of the e-commerce channels haven't invested in the back end of the systems of the data, where Amazon gives you a lot of information about the sales you're doing, and you do not have enough information about the sales you're doing on the other e-com platforms, especially for a startup that becomes very critical. So you can just extrapolate this data in the absence of other information. You
Hmm.
don't have to buy or e-com management softwares to figure this out. You don't need to do that. So be frugal, be very quiet, or be very prudent about the kind of softwares or systems you're investing in, and do a lot of the work yourself.
Hmm. Most of the entrepreneurs that I have met, possibly they have wisened up because most of them were, looking at some of these free tools that are available
Mm.
to do all the basics job that they need, and possibly one or two specialty softwares which are quite core to what they want to achieve.
Right.
Yeah, beyond a certain scale, that you would look at a possibly a payroll kind of a software which lets you an HRMS, which lets you
Mm.
manage everything in an employee life cycle, etc.
Right.
But otherwise, most of the ones that I have met have already wisened up to this particular advice, and they know that there are surfeit of tools now available which can allow them to do most of the jobs that they want, at least in the initial stages.
Oh, absolutely. I'm glad to hear that, and I'm sure that that wisdom is setting in. And I added this point primarily because I met an entrepreneur with a team of about 50 of them sitting in the same office,
Hmm.
and they subscribed to Slack.
Hmm.
Slack was on 15 lakhs or something for the year.
Is it?
Yeah,
Oh,
and for
okay.
the number of users that they signed up for, I think
Ah.
somewhere in that range. And so why aren't you using Click, which is or Click as the equivalent on Zoho, which comes at some 1/10 the cost, not even 1/5. It's 1/10 the cost,
Hmm.
and they finally moved to Click.
Fair.
The next is actually the opposite of what I just said,
Uh huh.
because leveraging AI, technology in general, but AI in specific, is how startups can save a lot of money. Now, AI seems to be a very scary term. It seems, depending on where you're standing, it seems attractive or scary. And I think AI, especially in business, is the enabler of scale. The scale that was available only to the large companies, now AI is enabling that for everybody. It's democratizing scale in for the entrepreneurs. And there is this saying that people AI is not going to take your job, but somebody who knows how to use AI will. And learning how to leverage AI for your business is extremely critical for businesses. Now, what are the spaces where AI can fit in? Each business is different. You've got to figure that out. But on the marketing front, a lot of the manual tasks can be taken away. So, starting with the basics, your Chat GPT for your content creation. You can use Chat GPT for your chatbots. So, have you heard of Chris Doe?
Chris Doe.
Yeah.
No.
So Chris Doe runs a creative agency in the US, and he also runs a training. It's almost like a school for creative entrepreneurs. And what he's done with Chat GPT is that he's on a mission to enable a billion people, to teach a billion people to do uh, to do well in the creative profession. And he says, I can't do it myself. And he has used Chat GPT and generative AI to create an AI version of himself.
Hmm.
He's called it the Dobot. He's trademarked the term. And if you can't, I mean, obviously he's one man. You can't always ask him direct questions. But if you have access to the Dobot, you can ask it questions, and it will respond to you just the way Chris Doe would. So you
Oh,
almost
nice.
got a personal tutor in Dobot of the Chris Doe caliber. He's basically cloned himself into
Ah.
generative AI,
Hmm.
which is fantastic, right? So
Okay,
The ways you can leverage it.
I'm not sure that is fantastic, but yeah, just goes on to show the power of imagination,
Yeah.
and then what AI can do for you. Fair.
The next one is about partnering up.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do everything on your own as a brand, it does get expensive. But what if you can partner up with people, share the
Mm.
cost with people,
Mm.
and getting the right kind of partnerships and collaborations can work brilliantly for all the partners in the group. So there are low cost, there are even free partnerships you can do. And some of the examples that come to mind are both brands that I've seen you use, rather talk about, Ultra Human and the Whole Truth Bar.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
The whole Truth introduced an Ultra Human bar, saying that
Correct.
it's the most nutritious bar they made.
Yes.
And I'd still put both of them in the startup space,
Yeah.
and them partnering up together to boost one another. I'm sure there would have been a monetary contract somewhere. There could have been, but it kind of works for both brands because many of us may not have heard of it, especially me, because I've got nothing to do with fitness. But within the fitness community, it could have cracked, could have done pretty well, could have resonated easily because Ultra Human is talking to the same people who are consuming a large portion of them who are consuming the whole truth.
Yeah. Fair.
And
Fair. Yeah.
Boat and Netflix did this.
Hmm.
Boat launched limited edition of streaming headphones, is what they called it. I'm not sure what was different about it, but I thought that was pretty interesting.
Correct.
Swiggy and Hotstar. When you're watching a match or a movie on Hotstar, you can order Swiggy
Hmm.
from the Hotstar app. I thought that was interesting.
Hmm.
One thing I noticed recently was the Blue Tokai coffee and the Mason and Co. chocolate, the artisan
Okay.
chocolate.
Okay.
So the Mason and Co. launched a Blue Tokai coffee version of chocolates. So these are partnerships that can work, will not necessarily go viral, but these are partnerships that can work for both brands at the same time, where one is leveraging the other. Now, there are rules for these collaborations. You must be conscious about who you're partnering with. If Ultra Human went and partnered with a Baskin Robbins, it wouldn't make sense. So you've got to be in complementary categories. So you're not fighting for the same consumer in the same space. You are addressing the same consumer from different angles. So you need to be complementary categories.
Fair.
And hmm,
Fair.
you must have equity coherence. You must not be drastically different personalities or different brands. So Boat and Netflix is still fine. Ultra Human and Whole Truth is still fine. What if you did, say, a Blue Tokai and say a Cadbury? It might not necessarily work because one is seen a little more artisanal than the other. There
Hmm.
is, and obviously, you must have consumer intersection. You must have shared consumer base you're talking to. And the last thing is that by both your brands coming together, is the consumer going to have a value added experience? That is something if you can crack, if you can actually value add to the experience you're delivering, that's when the collaboration, the partnership start working even better.
Fair. In fact, I would possibly stretch the logic a bit further and tell me, Sharon, if it still falls under the ambit of point that you were mentioning.
Hmm.
Uh, See, some of the collaborations that you spoke about are quite a nice, perfect little collaborations.
Right.
Difficult to come by,
Hmm.
not so easily spottable, etc.
Hmm.
And many of the owners might say that these are some of the iconic examples or rare examples.
Hmm.
I would possibly also say that, you know uh, w- a business has to, or a founder has to possibly open himself or herself up to some communities, some forums where you find opportunities to collaborate. Yeah, I know
Yes.
each one of the VC firms provides something like that to their to businesses that they have invested in.
Right.
And then for businesses who have not seen any investment, there are significant number of business forums.
Hmm.
I know you, in one of the private conversations we spoke about, you having been to couple of such forums in the past, where a
Right.
lot of other business owners came in. I went to one such forum in Kolkata
Hmm.
to talk BNI it was. So
Right.
there are a number of such forums that exist.
Hmm.
Even if you don't know where to start, many of those forums might give you very interesting forums, many interesting possible partnerships, collaborations, etc. uh, and that could be a good starting point.
Oh, absolutely. So as a brand owner, you'd only know about your business, right? You wouldn't know in depth as about as many businesses. And as an entrepreneur, you must be networking anyway.
Hmm.
And while you're networking, if you can you can spot a brand that you can partner with, nothing like it. And yes, what I quoted are the ones that are the big brands who got a lot of money, but the core was to talk about how they partnered up to serve the same consumer. And what you're saying is perfectly bang on. Say, unless you are out there talking to people, you will not know what kind of brand partnerships can actually work for you.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
They don't always have to be big, right? Even the small partnerships can end up growing into big partnerships over time.
Correct. Correct. Okay. What next?
And pretty much the last point is that do some jugaad.
Uh huh.
I spoke about this before also, saying be innovative, be try new things always, and trying new things does not cost money. So I'm not sure if many people know this. When Obama released his latest biography, I think that was about almost 3 or 4 years ago, he what he did with the book is that he released a curated playlist of songs, saying each chapter resonates with a certain song,
Hmm.
and each so the number of chapters and the number of songs in the playlist were the same. And this playlist dropped on Apple Music and Spotify the day of the book launch,
Nice.
and the playlist was downloaded more than the book was bought,
Hmm.
showing that the playlist was a funnel to the book purchase.
Hmm. Hmm.
The playlist is free. And this is an example, right? So any business you're doing, let's say you're doing a South Indian filter coffee brand, you could come up with so many songs for free to put in a playlist, cost you nothing. Put it on your website, let people download a list of Carnatic vocals. You have every December is what's called the Carnatic music festival season. So put it on a playlist, make a calendar out of what concerts are going on. I'm just talking about filter coffee, could be anything. Or do Red Bull, talk about adventure sports you're going into. So that there can be anything to enhance the customer experience, the
Hmm.
consumer experience,
Hmm.
by what you're putting together for free.
Fair. Fair. And it goes
I
back to
have,
your previous point,
yeah,
which is about, focusing on a niche,
yes,
understanding that niche well,
exactly.
so that you could do some of these things.
Absolutely. I think all of this works only if you are already spotted your niche.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I have another non niche specific story. And this is something I found fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I've written about this before. This is this deodorant called Fussy. So
Hmm.
they are an eco friendly deodorant brand in the
Hmm.
UK.
Hmm.
And what they did when they launched, they continuously did videos about how their brand was superior than other deodorant brands.
Hmm.
And they specifically went after Lynx, which is the Axe equivalent from Unilever,
Hmm.
and Lynx and Dove. So basically, they focus on a lot of Unilever brands, and Unilever does have a significant deodorant play.
Hmm.
And they got a legal notice from
Okay.
Unilever. And Unilever is known to be litigious, especially when another brand calls out their brand. It's
Hmm.
happened in India also, right? Like when Sebamed went after Lifebuoy and Dove, Unilever did take the legal route. When Amul said Waltz is not real ice cream, they went out
Hmm.
and go the legal route. And Unilever is a litigious company and they're very protective about their brands.
Hmm.
And these guys, when they did this, they got a legal notice. And they put up the legal notice on social media. And what they did next was even better. They said, "We are sorry. We are just a startup. What we did was wrong. And we should not have done what we did. If we had a marketing department, we would fire them. But we are just the four of us. We are a fledgling startup. We will not do this again.
Hmm.
And we don't have the money to take you on."
Hmm.
They've got public sympathy.
Hmm.
Unilever is now backing off. They went one step further. They said, "We're going to offer an olive branch to Unilever."
Hmm.
and they took an olive plant
Okay.
through the London metro, filming it all the while,
Huh.
taking it to the Unilever office. When they were not allowed into the office, they left the plant in front of the office and with a
Huh.
card to the CEO
Wow.
saying, "This is for you. We're sorry we did a mistake." They filmed all of this. And the
Huh.
cherry on top came when the Unilever CEO tweeted back with the card that he received saying, "Point noted, good luck." That got the brand to go viral, right? Now, this is such a cute story, right?
Hmm.
Let me tell you the background to this. The four people who started Fussy are advertising veterans of 25 years. They knew Unilever was litigious.
Hmm.
The entire thing was orchestrated to get a reaction out of Unilever, and they kept attacking Unilever brands until they got attacked. And this was their plan over all the time, all along.
Interesting. Wow. All deliberate.
All was deliberate,
Okay.
but they got significant mileage out of this. They completely sold out when this went viral. The
Hmm.
story, the backstory came out a lot later, and similar things, right? So there's a drink brand in the UK called Innocent.
Hmm.
You might have heard of it.
Yeah.
And the story
Yeah.
is that they started in a garage, and that's how they became big. The friends together started in a garage. Is the story that they sell. But the true story is that they were actually consultants in one of the top four consulting big consulting groups, and they actually bought a house with a garage so that they could build the story of having started in a garage.
Very nice.
So there are so many ways
Will
you
do
can
that.
build a brand, so many ways you can go viral. Be innovative, just have
Okay.
fun with it. That's pretty much it. The last point I'll leave to you.
Oh, which is about measuring success, is it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. No, I think that point I think we have made a number of times on the podcast, uh, which is primarily about regardless of whatever route you take, whatever mediums you choose, you clearly know what you want it to do to your brand.
Hmm.
So, therefore, it is important to first articulate it and then measure it. Measurement, as we have spoken in the past, needn't be very costly, needn't be a syndicated agency measurement, etc. You can do it yourself as long as you are clear who you are measuring within, what is the TG, and number two, what are you really measuring,
Right.
what are you going to go for. And as long as these two things are clear, you with after every campaign, after every effort, you can measure whether it is leading you in the right direction or not.
Right.
And as long as it is going in that way, you should be sure that it will start paying off in terms of your run rate or your sales as well.
Hmm. Perfect. And this actually goes back to what we said, right?
Yeah.
When even if you do it for free, for cheap, or for a lot of money, you need to know what is working for you to repeat it. And if something's working for you, keep doing it until it stops working for you.
Hmm.
And the only way you know it's working is if you can measure what success means for each of the marketing activity.
Hmm. 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 Fair.
So
Fair.
that's it. And now my clients know that even after paying me, they can still do some marketing.
Correct. Correct.
Thank you, Sudeep.
Ciao. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to CoB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharavana Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobcast.net. That's CoBBCAST.net.